I heard about the missing 13th floor before I ever moved into the building. Officially, our tower only had 12 floors. That was printed on the brochure, listed on the property management site, stamped on the elevator panel. 12 slick, newly renovated floors, each one with the same white doors and brushed steel numbers. But everyone who'd lived there more than a year had a story about the 13th. They never started with, "I saw a ghost," or "the building is haunted." They said things like, they laughed when they said them, the way you laugh when you admit you're still a tiny bit afraid of the dark. I moved in anyway. I'm 33, divorced, and I work nights doing remote support for a hospital system. It's not glamorous, but it pays on time, and the apartment was close to my sister's place, which meant I could see my niece Mia more often. She's 8, obsessed with drawing, and has the lungs of a fire alarm when she's excited. The building itself was one of those glass and concrete rectangles that look expensive until you stare too long. It had a small lobby with fake plants, a bored security guard, a wall of mailboxes, and 2 elevators with scuffed steel doors. My unit was 10B, 1 bedroom, narrow kitchen, view of the parking lot. I moved in on a Wednesday in March with 3 suitcases, a box of kitchen stuff, and a cheap mattress that I dragged up in the elevator while the moving guys swore at each other in the stairwell. The first time I noticed anything strange was the 3rd night. I was on call, sitting at my little desk by the window, laptop open, phone plugged in. My shift had started at 11 p.m. and would run until 7 a.m., which meant that at 1:13 a.m. I was troubleshooting some forgotten printer for a ward nurse I'd never meet. That time sticks with me now, because at 1:13 the elevator dinged. I heard it even from inside my apartment. A clear, bright ding followed by the soft rumble of cables and counterweights sliding in their shafts. It's a sound you stop noticing during the day, but at 1 in the morning, it cut through the building like a note on a glass rim. No big deal. People have lives. People come home late. But a minute later, my hallway motion light flicked on. You know that click the sensor makes? That's what pulled my eyes away from the screen. The light outside my door glowed under the gap, then faded. Then, about 30 seconds later, the elevator dinged again. I checked the time in the bottom corner of my screen without thinking. 1:15 a.m. I didn't think ghost, I thought drunk neighbors. Maybe someone had pressed the wrong button and was riding up and down, trying to find their floor. I went back to the ticket, typed another note, and grabbed my headset as the nurse came back on the line. By 1:30, I'd forgotten about it. The next night, it happened again. I was on another call, this time about a frozen patient portal, when the elevator dinged at 1:13. Hallway light, soft hum, then another ding 2 minutes later. I muted my microphone. "Sorry," I said into the headset. "Can you repeat that? Connection's a little spotty." No slamming doors, no muffled music, no footfalls. Just the faint, mechanical whine of the elevator going somewhere it wasn't supposed to go. The third night, I was ready. I logged into my shift early, made sure I wasn't on a call around 1, and sat by the door with my laptop on the little console table. I cracked the door open just enough for light to spill into the hallway. At 1:12, I felt silly. At 1:13, the elevator dinged. I slid the door open half an inch more and peered out. Our hallway was a straight line, elevator at one end, stairwell at the other, my door halfway in between. Beige carpet, white walls. The motion sensor light flicked on as the elevator doors parted. No one stepped out. The doors stayed open longer than they should, like the elevator was waiting for someone to board. After maybe 10 seconds, they closed again. I heard the motor engage as it started to move. I glanced up. The digital display above the doors showed a glowing number. Not 10, not 11, or 9:13. I felt something tighten right behind my ribs. The elevator moved. The little red 13 stayed lit far longer than it ever did for any other floor. It didn't tick up or down. It just glowed, steady and wrong, until the doors opened again. Ding. Nobody stepped out then either. I watched that unmarked floor sit in the display for 5 more seconds, then disappear. The motor hummed, the counterweight slid, and the number rolled back down to 1. By the time the doors opened onto the lobby, I'd realized something important. There was no button for a 13th floor in the elevator. I'd never noticed that before. I watched for this every night after that. It didn't always happen at exactly 1:13, but it was always between 1:10 and 1:15 a.m. The elevator would rise on its own from the lobby, stop on my floor for no one, then continue upward. The display would show 11, 12, 13, and then back down to the lobby again, before returning to whatever floor had actually called it. No one else seemed to use it at that time. No one ever waited in the hallway when those doors opened onto nothing. Why would they? Most people were asleep. I only learned the rule a week later. It was Sunday. I'd gone downstairs to pick up a package, some noise-canceling headphones I'd convinced myself I needed, and found our security guard, Lewis, at the desk. I'd seen him a few times before. Mid-40s, broad shoulders, thinning hair. The polite distance of someone who's seen too many weird tenants to be impressed by any more. He scanned my package, slid it over, and squinted at my name again. "You're 10B, right?" he said. "Yeah." They sharpened in a way that made my stomach feel like it had just moved half an inch sideways. "What about them?" he asked. I shrugged, tried to sound casual. "I work nights. I'm up around 1 or 2 most days, and I've noticed the elevators do a little dance around that time. Like no one calls them, but they come up to 10 open, then go up to," I almost said 13 and stopped myself. "Somewhere else, then go back down. Is that maintenance or something?" It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a fire evacuation plan or a security policy. It was a list of bullet points under a bold heading. "If elevator arrives on your floor unrequested, do not board. If elevator panel displays 13, do not press any buttons. Wait for car to return to lobby. If you are inside elevator when 13 appears, do not exit the car. Press and hold door close and lobby until doors close." "What is this?" I asked. "Orientation packet," he said. "You didn't get one. Is that just a glitch?" I grew up a couple hours north. They said it was faulty wiring, but I don't know. Dozens of people died. Some got trapped in the elevator between floors. Sometimes the building disagrees. All I know is it started when they opened the building, and it's never stopped. If someone tries to get clever. The headline was something like, below the text described an after-hours incident where a resident had allegedly become trapped between floors. Fire crews were called. They pried open the doors on the lobby level and found an empty car. They checked floor by floor, Lewis said. Stairwells, basement, rooftop. She was gone. Security footage shows her getting in at 1:14 a.m. No footage of her leaving. This one mentioned an older man who'd apparently pressed the emergency stop button between floors and suffered a fatal heart attack. Another article talked about a teenager who had been found catatonic in the corner of the car, fingers bleeding where they'd clawed at the metal walls. He didn't die, Lewis said, but he never spoke again. Not once. His parents sued, management settled, we got the binder. For a 12-story building in this part of the city, he lifted his hands. We're lucky, man. Maybe luckier than we should be. That's the dumbest bargain I've ever heard. I woke up at 6 in the evening, made coffee, answered emails, showered, and logged into my shift by 11. Around midnight, my sister would text me photos of Mia's drawings. A house with too many windows, a stick figure with a balloon, a dog that looked like it had been assembled from the wrong parts of other dogs. And then I'd be swallowed by tickets until the sun came up. The elevator did its nightly ritual. 1:10 to 1:15, ding, empty car, slow crawl up past 12, the forbidden number glowing like an error message, then down again. I started timing it. Up to me 1 minute. Doors open 10 seconds. Up to 13, 20 seconds. Doors open somewhere I couldn't see 5 seconds, 10. Back down to 1. Another 30. Sometimes I heard faint, muffled sounds when the doors opened on 13. Barely there. Like someone shuffling on carpet, or a voice speaking through 2 walls, too soft and too distant to make out. It could have been my neighbors, it could have been my imagination. I never went out to check during that time. It wasn't that I believed Lewis. I just didn't feel like giving the universe an excuse to prove him right. That fragile, uneasy truce lasted until my niece asked if she could stay the night. My sister, Alina, called on a Thursday afternoon as I was pouring cereal into a bowl. Mia's off school tomorrow, she said. Think you can take her for a sleepover? I've got my shift. I remembered Dad's last routine checkup turning into a 3-day hospital stay. Is he okay? I owe you. You're taller than the trees. Taller than the trees, Uncle Alex. I pointed at the bedroom door. And where do I sleep? A box on a string between 2 tall rectangles, little stick people inside. Is that us? I asked. No, she said. That's the people who live upstairs. By 10:30, I'd washed the dishes. She'd brushed her teeth, and the couch had unfolded into a lumpy bed. I let her pick a movie, some animated thing with talking animals, and set my laptop up at the kitchen table so I could start my shift. You can stay up for the movie, I said, but then you gotta sleep, okay? I'm gonna be working. I found her asleep on top of the blanket, one arm flung over her eyes. I turned off the TV, tucked the blanket around her, and turned the living room lamp down to its lowest setting. Then I closed the bedroom door halfway and went back to my laptop. The elevator ritual had almost started to feel comforting in a weird way. A marker in the night, a mechanical heartbeat in the bones of the building. That night it was late. 1:14, no ding. I frowned and checked my phone. Maybe the clock on my laptop was off. 1:15, still nothing. I got up and cracked the apartment door, peering into the hallway. Dark, quiet. The motion sensor light didn't even click on. I hadn't opened the door wide enough. Okay, maybe it didn't happen every night. I shut the door, shook off the prickle crawling up the back of my neck, and went to get more coffee. I just started the machine when the elevator dinged. Not the gentle, muted ding I was used to hearing through my door. This one was louder, sharper, as if it had come from just a few feet away. My skin went cold. That's when I realized it had come from inside the apartment. I turned very slowly toward the living room. Mia's tablet was on the coffee table, dark screen reflecting the lamplight. My TV was off. The only thing that could have made that chime. I walked to the door on soft feet and opened it all the way. The hallway motion light snapped on. It showed me a completely normal corridor, beige carpet, white walls, elevator doors at the end, stairwell door on the opposite side. The elevator doors were closed. The sound had been clear, though. Crisp, like the elevator was right behind my ear. I forced myself to step out, the way you force yourself to check the shower when you think you saw something move behind the curtain. The carpet felt damp under my socks, though I knew it was somehow only my imagination. "Hello," I said, hating how cliché it sounded. No answer. I took one more step, close enough now to see the reflection of the hallway light in the brushed steel doors. The digital display above them was dark. No floor numbers, no movement. I turned to go back inside. That's when the elevator dinged a third time and the display blinked on. 13. The number flickered, dimmer than usual but unmistakable. A sickly red, like it had been drawn with a finger over the inside of my eyelid. My mouth went dry. I hadn't pressed the call button. No one else had either. I would have heard their doors. The car was already here on my floor. The doors shuddered. They didn't open all the way. They slid apart maybe an inch, groaned, and stuck. Through the narrow gap, I saw dark space, no light, no gleam of another hallway, just shadow thick enough to feel heavy. From that darkness, something thumped against the inside of the doors once, twice, like a fist testing an old bruise. I took a step back without meaning to. The digital display flickered again and went blank. The doors stayed wedged open that inch, "Alex," a small voice said behind me. I almost jumped out of my skin. Mia stood in my doorway, rubbing her eyes, hair tangled into a halo around her head. "Hey," I said, forcing my voice down an octave. "Go back to the couch, Mi. I'll be there in a second." "Do you hear it?" she whispered. The thumping had stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, faintly, from the dark gap between the doors, I heard a soft, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled along a floor. "Inside," I said more sharply. She flinched and stepped back over the threshold. I closed the apartment door. The lock sliding home sounded loud as a gunshot. "What was that?" she asked. "Just maintenance," I lied. "At night." Back to sleep. I marked myself away on the call queue and sat by the door, listening. At some point, the display above the elevator must have gone dark again. The car moved, restarted its normal cycle, joined the daytime world of groceries and strollers, and people in suits. By dawn, I had almost convinced myself that the sound inside the apartment had been a trick of acoustics. Old buildings are weird. Metal echoes. Then Mia showed me her drawing. It was after breakfast. I was making her pancakes. She was at the table with her markers. "Uncle Alex," she said, "can I show you something?" There was a figure standing in the back corner. Not a person, not exactly. It was too tall, its head grazing the ceiling, and its arms were too long, fingertips brushing the floor. Its body was a crosshatch of black ink, so dark she'd ripped the page in a few spots, pressing too hard. Where its face should have been, she'd drawn an empty, stretched oval. "It lives on the floor with no number," she said. "It doesn't like it when you try to visit." I called Alina as soon as Mia was out the door that afternoon. "You let her watch scary stuff again," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "What? No, why?" "Hey, did Dad ever tell you anything about buildings? Elevators? Floors you're not supposed to get off on?" "Where we grew up," I said. "The old complex. Did they have a 13th floor?" I pictured him sitting at the kitchen table, white wires of the phone curling around his hand, the light over the sink painting every line in his face deeper. "When you were little," he said, "we had a neighbor who worked maintenance for a skyscraper downtown. Old place, 13 floors. No superstition. If you see 13 on the display when it shouldn't be there, you get off at the next floor and take the stairs. Maintenance only rides after hours. They had to cut the power to pry them out. One of them swore that when the car stopped, it opened onto a hallway that wasn't his floor. Said it looked like a hospital, but with all the lights off. No carpet, just concrete and dark. Tall guy in a coat. Didn't look quite right. Every time the kid blinked, the guy was closer, even though he never saw him move. Didn't have to, he said. You believe the rules and you don't ask why. That's how old buildings work. You're not 13 anymore. And the night after that, it would have faded back into background noise if Lewis hadn't gone on vacation. They put a new guy at the desk, early 20s, fresh haircut, brand new security uniform he wore like a Halloween costume. His name tag said Trevor. On his first night, he told me he'd worked at a bunch of properties, and that this place is easy money, man. Old people, students, nobody ever causes trouble. When I asked him if they'd given him the orientation binder, he waved one hand. Yeah, don't let anyone sneak in. Log every package. Fire alarms on Tuesdays, he said. I got it. It felt too much like admitting I believed him. I learned the date of his return from the notice taped to the elevator doors a few days later. Staff schedule change. L. Martinez returns April 15. Welcome back, LUIS. Underneath, someone had scribbled in pen. Around 12:45, I took a break and went downstairs to get a soda from the machine by the laundry room. Trevor was at the desk, scrolling on his phone. Hey man, he said when he saw me. How's the late shift? This is the chillest gig I've ever had. You see this crap? Don't ride the elevator after 1 a.m. Don't get off on 13, blah blah. You guys really take this seriously. I'm superstitious like that. I'm not seeing any basement ghosts either. The building's not cursed. It's just old wiring. I opened my door a crack and watched. The car arrived on 10 as usual. Doors opened. No one inside. The display ticked from 10 to 11 to 12, then it rippled through numbers faster than I could track. 0, 9, 2, 15, 0. Then settled on a symbol I'd never seen before. It looked like a figure 8 missing its bottom loop. An incomplete infinity. The elevator doors shut. They didn't move. I waited for the sound of the motor. Nothing. The car just sat on my floor, humming softly, the incomplete 8 pulsing like a heartbeat. My phone buzzed on the table behind me. I flinched, shut the door, grabbed it. Hello. Something's wrong with the elevator. I can see the concrete through the crack. There should be a door open and door close button. See them. The faint hum of machinery through the phone. The distant buzz of fluorescent lights. Then, faintly, I heard another sound, a slow, deliberate scrape. Do you hear that? Trevor whispered. It's outside the doors. Just keep holding the buttons. I thought we didn't have a 13th floor. What do they say when 13 appears? Trevor shouted, the phone clattered, then was grabbed again. Oh God, he said, it's right there. It's right fucking there. Close your eyes, I said quietly. Just close your eyes and hold the buttons. Don't move, don't talk, don't open your eyes until you hear my voice again. Okay. It moved from the doors to the walls, rasping in a slow circle around the car. The tiny speaker on my phone wasn't built for this kind of detail, but it might as well have been in my own living room. I heard it like something breathing just beside my ear. The hum of the elevator motor died. For a moment, there was nothing. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the inside of the car. Not from where the doors were, from the rear wall. Trevor whimpered. Don't open your eyes, I said again, barely above a whisper, as if whatever was inside the car with him could hear me through the line. Another knock, closer to the phone now, as if whatever it was had moved around him. The temperature in my apartment dropped. I hadn't noticed the air conditioner kicking on. I don't think it had. My breath fogged faintly in front of my face, a little cloud that vanished almost as soon as it formed. The motor whined back to life. Do you feel that? I asked. Is it moving? I think so. My ears popped. It's going down. The phone crackled with the sound of an ordinary lobby. The distant echo of someone's TV, the hum of the vending machine, the hollow acoustics of tile and glass. You can open your eyes now, I said. He didn't answer. Trevor. It wasn't the loud, theatrical crying of someone who wants to be comforted. It was the quiet, raw sound of something vital having been scraped away. I hung up and ran for the stairs. By the time I reached the lobby, my legs were burning. The stairwell door banged open onto a scene that felt like it had been dipped in cold water. Trevor sat on the floor by the elevator, back against the wall, phone dangling from his hand. His eyes were open and staring, but not really focused on anything. His uniform shirt was damp with sweat. Lewis's binder lay open on the desk, pages fluttering in the AC. "Hey," I said, crouching in front of him. "Trevor, look at me." His eyes darted toward the elevator doors and away again. There was, he swallowed, something in there with me, standing right in front of me. It was tall. I could hear its head scraping the ceiling. They were counting my bones. Then I realized it wasn't the car. It was the external display, the one that told you what floor the elevator was currently on. The building thought the elevator was on the 13th floor, but the doors had just opened on the lobby. "Okay," I said, backing away. "Okay, that's enough." They ran diagnostics, shook their heads, talked about old control boards and voltage spikes. I considered telling them about the incomplete 8, but I already knew how that would go. Trevor didn't work another shift. I heard later, through the building grapevine, that he'd quit the next day. His mother came to collect his uniform and the last of his pay. She refused to enter the lobby. She stood on the sidewalk and had them bring everything out to her. "There's something wrong with this place," she said loudly enough that everyone in earshot could hear. "My boy came here laughing and left, like this." Once around 12:45, the car arrived on my floor when it shouldn't have. I hadn't pressed the button. No one had. The doors opened, stayed open for a full 30 seconds, then closed again. The motion sensor hallway light didn't turn on that time. It took me a while to realize why. Whatever had called the elevator wasn't big enough to trip it. I taped the orientation rules to the inside of my apartment door. I made Mia promise, in her solemn kid voice, that she would never ride the elevator without me, and never, ever press any button if she saw 13. "Because the building is old," I said, "and you don't poke at old things when they're sleeping." Then 3 months later, my father moved in with me. The hospital where he'd gone for just tests had turned into 3 surgeries and something the doctors didn't like to name out loud. The stairs at his place had become an enemy. Alina had her hands full with Mia and double shifts. "You have the elevator," she said when we talked about it. "Your place is better for him. No stairs." He moved slowly, leaning harder than he should have on the cane. "You look tired," he said as I took his bag. "You look worse," I said. It was our way of saying I love you. I timed my shifts so I could bring him up from the lobby, take him down to his appointments, always pressing the buttons myself, never lingering in the hallway after midnight. But you can't control everything. It was a Thursday night. I was at my laptop, answering yet another ticket, when I heard the unmistakable sound of my apartment door opening. I checked the time. 1:09 a.m. Dad, I called. No answer. My skin went cold. I got up and stepped into the hallway. The door was half open, drifting slowly inward on its hinges. Dad. I ran to the open door and looked out. The hallway was empty. Dad, I shouted louder now. A cough answered me from the far end. He was standing by the elevator, one hand on the wall, breathing hard. The elevator doors were open. The display above them was dark, but inside the car, the panel glowed with a single red number. 13. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What are you doing?" I shouted, sprinting down the hall. "Get away from there." He flinched, more in surprise than pain. "Hey," he said, "easy, boy. What's gotten into you? We'll get someone else to check it in the morning." It cycled through numbers, symbols, an error message that looked like static. The light from the panel inside the car deepened to a bloody red. "Alex," my father said quietly, "why is it doing that?" For half a second, I thought we'd made it. Then the old man did what he'd always done when confronted with a malfunctioning piece of machinery. He tried to fix it. He let go of my hand and slapped his palm against the edge of the door hard to stop it sliding. It worked. The doors bounced back, reopening fully. The panel flashed the incomplete 8, then 13 again, steady and bright. For the first time since I'd moved in, I could see inside the car when the building thought it was on the 13th floor. There was no lobby on the other side. There was no mirrored wall, no scuffed floor, no safety certificate in a plastic frame. There was a hallway stretching away into darkness, its walls made of rough concrete. A faint, sourceless light lined the floor like a thin fog. The air that spilled out smelled like water trapped in metal for too long. At the far end of the corridor, something moved. It was tall enough that it had to stoop, its head brushing against the ceiling. Its arms were two long, dangling hands grazing the floor. Its body was a silhouette cut out of deeper shadow, edges indistinct. Its face. It was blank and stretched and wrong, like someone had tried to remember a human face from a description and gotten the shapes almost, but not quite right. It started walking toward us, not fast, not slow. A pace that said it knew exactly how long it had, that we couldn't stop it. "Dad," I said, voice thin, "step away, now." He was staring at it like a man watching an oncoming train. His hand, still pressed to the edge of the door, had gone white at the knuckles. "Alex," he whispered, "I've seen this before." Its hands flexed, too many fingers dragging along the metal, tapping once, twice, listening to the sound. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. My father swayed on his feet. "Close the door," he said hoarsely. "Close it." The incomplete 8 glowed for a second, then vanished. Every button on the board lit up at once. The car stayed exactly where it was. The thing stepped forward. There was no more threshold then. Whatever line had held it back snapped like rotten thread. It moved into the elevator car, filling it, knees bending double to accommodate its height. Its fingers spread, bracing against the walls. Its hands were so thin they were almost translucent, but each finger cast a shadow too long for its length. One of those hands reached out. It didn't touch my father. It touched the inside of the doorway, tracing the metal frame, feeling the spot where his hand had been with obscene delicacy. It pressed a palm flat against the place where his skin still warmed the steel. Where it touched, the metal bulged outward, swelling like something under the surface had just pressed back. My father made a sound I'd never heard from him before. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. "I should have died in that fire," he whispered. "We lived because the elevators failed. We lived because the doors wouldn't open. We made a deal, and we didn't even know it." Its head came level with my father's face. They stared at each other for one heartbeat. Then its hand blurred. I didn't see it move. One moment, its fingers were splayed against the metal. The next, they were pressed to my father's chest. He convulsed. Not like someone being electrocuted, not like a seizure. It was too controlled. Every muscle in his body clenched at once for exactly 1 second, then released. His eyes rolled back, then snapped forward again. The thing straightened, folding itself back into the car. My father remained upright. For a moment, I thought it hadn't done anything at all. Then he turned to look at me. His eyes were wrong. Not empty, not like Trevor's deep, broken stare, but wrong, like someone had taken a photo of my father's face and printed it with the colors slightly shifted. The brown of his irises had a faint, iridescent sheen that hadn't been there before. "Alex," he said, and his voice sounded like it always had. Relief flooded me. "Dad," I said, "we need to get you out of here. We have to." The doors slid shut. For a second, I saw the corridor on the other side again, empty now. Then the usual interior snapped back into place like an image overlaying another. The display blinked. 10-1, lobby. My father exhaled. "You okay?" I asked, grabbing his arm. He let me lead him back to the apartment without protest. His footsteps were steady, his breathing normal. If I hadn't seen what I'd seen, I might have convinced myself nothing had happened. Inside, I sat him on the couch and checked his pulse. Strong, regular. I shone my phone's flashlight into his eyes, watching the pupils constrict and dilate. "You're fussing," he said, swatting lightly at my hand. "You fuss like your mother. Maybe this one does too." For the next week, everything seemed fine. He took his pills. He watched his shows. He made terrible coffee and complained about my neighbor's music. When Alina and Mia came over on Sunday, he told the same story about the time he'd gotten stuck in an elevator as a teenager, embellishing details and adding new ones. "We laughed about it afterward," he said. "Didn't we, Alex?" But then I started noticing the little things. He didn't sleep as much. He stopped needing his cane around the apartment. At first, I chalked it up to good days. Anyone with a sick parent knows the relief of a good day. Then came the bad ones. He'd stand at the window for hours, staring at the parking lot. "See that?" he'd say. I'd look. There'd be nothing there, just cars and a few people walking dogs. "What?" I'd ask. "They keep adding floors," he'd murmur. "Can't you feel it?" Instead, they moved unpredictably between 1 and 3 a.m., doors opening on empty hallways, panel flashing symbols that weren't numbers. Once, the display outside showed 13 for almost half an hour, while the car sat on the lobby level, doors refusing to open at all. Management taped a new notice to the doors. Too high for anyone to reach without a ladder. Like something was trying to peel the ceiling open from the inside. I heard the elevator ding and stepped through the lobby doors just in time to see him standing on the sidewalk across the street, staring at the building. He'd lost weight. His hair was longer. He wore a hoodie despite the heat. I raised a hand. "Hey," I called. He flinched like someone had fired a gun. For a moment, our eyes met. There was nothing in them, not anger, not fear, just a sort of drained stillness, like whatever made him Trevor had been scooped out and replaced with silence. He turned and walked away without a word. I didn't try to follow, which brings me to now. Management has sent out another email. "Dear residents, It reads, "We are aware of ongoing concerns regarding elevator performance during late-night hours. We assure you that we are working with certified technicians to diagnose and resolve all issues. In the meantime, please adhere to the safety guidelines provided in your orientation packet." It doesn't mention the way the building groans at night now, like steel expanding and contracting around something too big for its bones. It doesn't mention that sometimes, when I'm lying awake at 1:13 a.m., I hear footsteps in the hallway, slow, dragging too many joints, and the soft ding of the elevator stopping on a floor that doesn't exist. My father died 2 months after the encounter at the elevator. The doctors said it was complications, a cascade of issues they'd been warning us about for years. His heart, his lungs, his age. They said it was remarkable he'd lasted as long as he had. I nodded. I signed the papers. I held Alina when she cried. I waited for my own grief to hit. It hasn't, not the way I expected. I miss him. I do. But there's a part of me that's numb, like someone turned down the volume on that whole section of my life. Sometimes I catch myself staring at the elevator panel when I ride it during the day. I watch my reflection in the brushed steel doors, and for a split second, my eyes flash with that iridescent sheen I saw on his face in the hallway. It might be the lights. It might be the building. Either way, I've decided something. I'm not moving. People ask me why. Friends, co-workers. They send me links to cheaper places, safer neighborhoods, buildings with brand new elevators, and no urban legends. You could start over, they say. We grew up in a building that owed us, my father said that night, with the thing's hand on his chest. We took the gift without paying. Buildings keep accounts. I don't know what, years off his life. Fear, the right to be afraid. Whatever bargain this place has made, I'm part of it now. I know the rules. I don't ride the elevator after 1 a.m. I don't press anything if I see 13, or the incomplete 8, or any symbol my brain refuses to recognize. If the doors open onto anything other than the lobby or my floor, I don't step out. If I hear knocking from inside, I don't answer. And when my niece comes to visit, we take the stairs, and I tell her the same thing my father told me. Because sometimes they're not sleeping, they're counting. And one night, when the numbers on their side of the ledger don't match the ones on yours, the elevator will ding. The doors will open onto somewhere that was never meant for you. And a hand with too many fingers will reach out to even the score. If you're lucky, you'll never see its face. If you're really lucky, you'll never have to wonder whether it's wearing yours.